seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Yes, welcome along the Boyce'S Bus Monday Club, the staple show of the bus, you could say, the original show that we ever drove the bus with the first time round, and now we're doing shows almost every single night, sometimes twice a day. I am joined as ever by the main man himself, Jonathan Boyce. How the devil are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm looking forward to this. It's been a bit of a quieter weekend. Don't know if you've seen the news, Russell, but there seems to be something going on in the wider world at the moment. And yeah, and it seems as if the football was cancelled as a result of this. So it'd be good to get it back on tomorrow night. We're looking forward to it. It should be quite a big game against Shakhtar.
It should be. It's Wednesday night, isn't it? We've kind of fucked this one up though, haven't we, Jonathan? I mean, we could have predicted this. We booked Kevin Bridges tickets, didn't we, 6 months ago?
Yeah, we did it around Christmas, I think, last year. Stupidly. I thought it was a great idea at the time. And I don't even think we were supposed to be going on the Wednesday. The original plan was we're going to get a ticket one of the other days. And he put in extra dates, remember? And that's when we ended up picking a Wednesday night.
So, yeah.
Because we didn't get them to begin with. And now it's clash. But Kevin's a good Celtic man, Russell. I'm sure he'll do us a turn tomorrow and make sure he doesn't come out on stage until such time, as the hoops have finished. So I'm still reasonably confident we'll see the game.
Yes, Jonathan, let's hope so. We can watch it on our smartphones and things like that as we await the arrival of Kevin Bridges on stage. There will, though, still be a post-match push. Do not worry. Phil McGinley is going to be driving it. He's an asset on the bus, and I know he's extremely popular, so he is very happy to take the keys, put them in the ignition, Jonathan, and drive away the post-match push after our Champions League match. And it's time, to really focus our attention on the Champions League, Jonathan. This is not now a competition that we can be spending our time, looking at from afar, Jonathan. We're now in the thick of it. We're now getting into the nitty-gritty, if you will. None more so than the fixture this week. And, we're not going to be, we're definitely not going to be taking this as a game, Jonathan, that, we tried our best, still got beat, came up short. This is a game we really need to be at it for, focused on, and hoping to win. We are going to talk about that, but before we do, as always, when asked upon, we like to help our new sponsor, I think you could call it now, Jonathan. It was before I was just saying, our friends, Hoops Raffles, but I think you could call them our sponsor if you so wish. And they have got another raffle on now. It's a Kyogo signed jersey.
Oh, it's a good one.
It's got the prints on the back, so it's got his name, his number. It's also got, judging by that picture, the Champions League logo on the sleeve. I like that.
Aye.
And of course, it is that away kit. You know, the one that is, I think, must be one of the best-selling shirts in the UK over the summer, Jonathan. It's got to have been. It's done unbelievably well.
Easily. That is the top that people are going for at the moment. You know what I mean? It's one of those nice retro throwbacks, and I would be surprised if there were any Celtic fans that won't be receiving that for Christmas if indeed they didn't get it over the summer months.
That's it, mate. You're absolutely spot on. I think you're right. So another brilliant gift from, or prize, I should say, if not gift, prize from Kyogo. So it's the signed shirt raffle. All the teams are £4 each, or you get 3 names on that football card, 3 team names for just a tenner. To do it, all you have to do is go to their Twitter page or go to their Instagram at Hoops Raffles and drop them a wee DM. Tell them whether you're wanting to buy one ticket or multiple tickets, and what they will do is they will get back to you and allocate you the teams, and then they'll do a live stream for the draw. So yeah, good luck with that, whoever's entering. It is another wonderful prize. I would enter, but it would look a wee bit dodgy if I actually did end up winning it, Jonathan. And I'm
it'd be called for conspiracy all over the gaff if you ended up winning. Wouldn't have seen such a big scandal since the referees went out on strike 10 years ago under Lenny if you picked one of them up.
Yeah, indeed, Jonathan. I think even Chris Sutton would be accusing Hoops Raffles of lying down, Jonathan, if that were to be the case. But yeah, Hoops Raffles, brilliant to work with you guys, and hopefully that card sells out. I've got no doubt in my mind whether I actually plugged that or not, that football team's card, Jonathan, will sell out. But just give them a wee message if you want to get in touch. But Jonathan, attention now does firmly switch to the Champions League. Also hit like, hit subscribe and share and all that carry on as well. And stay active in the comments. I know you always do. I love it. It keeps us going. We enjoy it. Jonathan, Champions League, we've had the extra break, unfortunately for me, because it's a dull weekend without Celtic. Let's be honest. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
And we had plenty of time to sit and miss Celtic without those pesky Champions League qualifiers. Now, there's no point for me, Jonathan, in us having these advantages, no qualifiers, no game this weekend, and then going in with an attitude towards this fixture, Jonathan, of, meh, we might do okay, we might not. I just can't bring myself to do that. I think this is a competition we should be taking as seriously as the league. Why not? We're there now. We're in a group, that I think we can compete in. I think we can really compete in this group. I think the group's been proven that it could be a lot of points getting taken off each other, judging by the impact we actually had against Real Madrid. They could be got at in the first half a wee bit. You look at the Callum McGregor opportunity, how close that was, what millimetres away from having the lead against them.
How it came off, not gone enough the post. I still am scratching my head at that one. It should have definitely been rattled into the back of the net, that one. And then there was a few other very good opportunities against Real Madrid as well. Let's not forget, McGregor's probably wasn't even the best chance we had on the night to actually get a goal. Abada has that really good one in Maida at the start of the second half. For me, should be burying that, as well. So, yeah, there's definitely opportunities there to get them. And unfortunately, never took them. And that really was the story of last week, was we didn't take our chances. Whereas we're going to need to learn from that this week. Because, again, I would imagine Shakhtar are going to be slightly better than perhaps I first anticipated, because they got a very impressive result against Leipzig on match day 1. So they might not be as big a mug, perhaps, as some might think they were going to be, given what is going on in their part of the world. You might have thought Shakhtar could be a bit weaker, perhaps, than they have been in previous years. But it looks, Russell, to me, as if they are going to be serious contenders in this group for second place. And, it's a huge opportunity for Celtic here, because if you can get a win in Ukraine, or at the very least pick up a point, and Poland, so being played in Ukraine. But I mean, if I was being played in Ukraine, God, as long as everyone got back, okay, that would be like half the battle there. But if it was, if we were to come back from Poland and get any sort of positive result there, then it really gives us a platform to kick on from in this group. And I think from our point of view, if we're looking at this and have any serious intentions of finishing second, I think we need to get something from this game.
Well, that's exactly my thoughts. This is a game that we should be really targeting to get points, Jonathan, and I would have said that before the group. Tattoo Face, thank you so much, mate. Always generous, my man. I do appreciate it very much. Thank you, pal, and thanks for jumping on the bus. But, Jonathan, it's a game where, Celtic realistically have to start taking themselves seriously, and I think some of the fans are giddy to be there. We had Mark yesterday, who was I think he described it at one point as he felt the group matches were meaningless, because of how far a road he feels it is before Celtic can actually be competitive in the Champions League. I feel like they've got to be focused on trying to get out the group and at the very least getting third. Celtic are a club that should be in Europe after Christmas year on year. That's just I think a standard that we should be expecting, and those expectations in Europe seem to have went backwards a wee bit, in the past sort of decade or so, Jonathan, and multiple reasons why, of course. But now we're in there, I think it's time for a positive outlook on this. I think it's time that we go, right, okay, they looked on paper maybe before the groups that Shakhtar might be the easier of the other two sides, vying for this second place or third place spot. But they then win 4-1 in Germany, and you start thinking, okay, they're no mugs, despite all the departures. Marian Shved scored again at the weekend. And you're now thinking, wow, there's a story there that could be written. But also, I think, Jonathan, we've also got to look at it and go, do you know what? Maybe Leipzig just weren't that good on the night. They did sack their manager after that, so their form must have been extremely patchy. I think we can't read too much into what they've done against Leipzig. It's all about what we do tomorrow against Shakhtar and what Shakhtar do tomorrow against us. Let's be on the right end of a result. Let's go in there with a positive outlook. Too long we had excuses, even when the team was strong. Sound that klaxon under Martin O'Neill, where it was always about the away fixture. Celtic don't travel in Europe. I'm like, well, we can't keep dining out on that, like year in, year out, like as if it's some sort of rule we can't win away in the Champions League. Because obviously in the UEFA Cup run, we were picking up away results, Jonathan. Blackburn, Liverpool, Boyce'S, and even Celtic Vigo, I think we got beat 2-1, but that away goal was crucial because that sent us through by Bad John. And you just think, you can't just have excuses like that. And we can't hide behind the excuse of we're not tooled up enough, like Gio did last week for Rangers. We've got to go into this, Jonathan, and say, Shakhtar, before the group started, with the team that we knew we had to finish above at the least. Let's keep that attitude, Jonathan, right?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely how we've got to be looking at it. And I think the good thing is with Ange in charge, as I don't see that being any other way that Celtic will approach this game. I think if there's one thing you're going to get from Ange Postecoglou's Celtic team, and they've shown it even in match day one, is that they're going to go into these games with tons of belief in the way that we want to play football. Again, I cannot see us going into a game like this after taking it to Real Madrid and most fans being, very much on board with how we performed, even if we didn't quite get the result against Real. I think most would be quite confident if we put in a similar level of performance, take some of our chances, and we should be in for a really memorable evening in Poland on Wednesday night. Shakhtar can't be underestimated. Of course, they've proven their worth in match day one as well against Leipzig. The script, as you say, is there for a Marian Shved to perhaps come back and haunt us. But I think from our point of view, I don't think there'll be a game that we'll fear in terms of away fixtures, because I know we don't tend to travel as well historically. But you've got to remember the last time Celtic even got out of a Champions League group, they actually won away at Spartak Moscow under Neil Lennon. So it can be done. Yep. And I think, I think psychologically, I think Celtic will be in a much better place with this current crop of players, in the sense that I don't think we'll have that defeatist attitude that perhaps has been prevalent in our Champions League campaigns previously, where they almost go into these games with such a wave of negativity around them, and the press probably don't help because they keep bringing up how poor our away form is, and it almost then puts even more pressure on the home games, Russell, when it's like that. And you're almost thinking, well, if we're going to get out of this group, we're going to have to win all 3 home games, and that's just not going to happen in every campaign, particularly when you have the likes of a Real Madrid in your group. So I don't see any reason why Celtic wouldn't be confident of getting a result. I fully expect them to go similar to what they did against Madrid last week. There'll be some interesting team selection choices in there. I think, for example, Abada probably didn't have his best game against Real Madrid, despite coming into it in such top form. I do think he might, decide to go back to a Dyson Maeda perhaps for this game, just to offer a bit more work off the ball. But there's a lot of good choices to be made across the team again, hasn't there?
Well, there's great options, Jonathan, for the team, and this is one of the other reasons as well, right? Why we can't focus on fucking records these are just a completely different group of players from that. They're just the only thing they've got in common is they're wearing hoops. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a completely different squad, different manager, different mentality. There seems to be real optimism around the club right now, from fans to the players to the manager. Let's take that into the performance on Wednesday and leave nothing behind, Jonathan. If we do that, I think we'll get something from the game. We are good enough to. That's what we have to believe. The standard of teams has always, for me, been based a lot of the time on what their budget's been, how much the collective has been spent on the team, what the teams that we're playing against market value is, what their wage expenditure is, Jonathan, on a week or monthly amount, and then compared and contrasted to Celtics, which, I don't know, is a bit of a lazy argument. It's quite easy just to associate numbers to results, Jonathan, when it's like that. I think what we've done is build a team that we've been able to identify with, firstly, as a fan base. And there's a lot of heroes in that team to the, particularly the younger element of our fan base as well. But more than that, Jonathan, we've got a team that we know is playing some electric football. We watch it every week. Now, whilst, yes, we all have to accept there is an ignorance about almost all our Scottish, all us Scottish fans that verges on hypocrisy when we say things like, we should be able to beat Shakhtar. I've not watched any Ukrainian league football this season, Jonathan, really to want an opinion on them. But yet when people do that about the Scottish game, we seem to get quite offended by that. But I do feel Celtic's first 11, or first 15, 16, you could say, when they're fit and firing, Jonathan, they look like they could cause problems to any side. Now, this might sound like a very boring question, or a one that you'll be able to answer easily. However, the signing of Abildgaard kind of poo-poos the idea, Jonathan, that Ange has only got one way of playing. Now, I'm going to ask you, how does he set up at Shakhtar? Because, let's be honest, if we go hell for leather and we come away with another 2-3-0 defeat, but we were in the game for an hour, I think that'd be quite deflating, and I think it'd be very damaging to our opportunity of qualifying from the group. Now, many will say, well, Ange won't change no matter who he's playing. But the signing of Abildgaard midweek, Jonathan, now I don't see him starting, by the way, tomorrow, not what I'm suggesting. But the signing of Abildgaard alone, who plays in the position he does, of that type of profile, suggests to me Ange may well have plans afoot to use different formations. The philosophy may remain the same, but he's obviously, by signing Abildgaard, strengthening the defensive area of midfield, I would guess, to maybe set up the midfield with two double pivots, as they like to call it, Jonathan. Could we see something like that being implemented tomorrow? Or is it going to be rock and roll from the start all over again, Jonathan? And if that is the case, then it has to be seen, or has to be said, that this group will be very much like the Europa League campaign of last year. We were teething, it was teething for the Celtic team. We played, absolute gung-ho football, and we got, a mixed bag of results. I think that's exactly what we'll get in the Champions League this year, because it's a rung up. So Celtic's moved up a level. Yes, they have, because they've had a year now of cohesion, but the tournament they've went into is a few levels up as well. So I think it'll be a mixed bag of results if we see Ange approaching the Shakhtar game the same fashion he did Real Madrid.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think it's going to be a roller coaster watching Celtic once again in Europe this season. I think he has obviously looked to strengthen defensively. There's no two ways about that. To perhaps look at changing his style for certain games, and it's got to be really, when you mention Abildgaard, that's got to be with an eye on the European fixtures, you would think. Tomorrow, Wednesday even, I think he will
keep saying that, I think.
We keep saying it's tomorrow. I've got it in my head it's a Tuesday game and it's actually a Wednesday one. But Wednesday night, I think he's probably going to go very similar to what he's done in European games last season away from home. And you've got to remember, he did put in some pretty solid performances, even if the results didn't follow. However, tomorrow is quite critical that we get a result. So I don't know if that might bear a bit more thought in his process when he's selecting his team, or if he's just going to decide we're going to play it and try and go right for the throat again in those first, half, that first 45 minutes. It's kind of where Postecoglou likes to really go at the opposition and try and get themselves into a lead. And, then they've got that sort of base to hold on to in the second half, and perhaps then he might look to tweak it. I can't see him starting the game overly defensively. I think it'll be a case that he'll try with probably a very similar lineup to what he actually had last midweek. And perhaps in some ways they might actually have benefited from having the Saturday off, because it's given the team more recovery time, because this style of football that Postecoglou has played, it takes a lot out of the players. I mean, fair enough, in the league games they're able to do that, not a problem, because they're up against a lower standard of opposition, and it makes it a bit more easy for the players to do the sort of running, because they spend more of the time on the ball. But you've got to bear in mind, against a team like Shakhtar Donetsk, again, there's going to be large spells where we're not going to have possession. You would expect they'll probably have the bulk of the possession on their home pitch. I know, granted, they're not actually playing at home, but it's
I know what you mean.
A ground they'll be a wee bit more familiar with than us. So, it's one of those ones that I think when Celtic are looking at it from their point of view, I think they will try and exploit Shakhtar early. I think they will try and do the similar sort of style that Ange has done previously. And then I think if he can get himself into a position where Celtic get themselves in front, he will then look to try and close the back door, because I think he might need to learn from his mistakes from last year, Russell, because if you remember, he played Real Betis, I think, in his first away Europa League group game, and I'm pretty sure we were 2-0 up in that game at one point, and we kept going for the throat and kept going at them, and we ended up losing 4-3. I think he might change his approach there if Celtic were to be fortunate enough to get themselves into a position where they were 2-0 up on Wednesday night, where I think they would start looking at, just closing the back door and making sure they don't let Shakhtar back into the game, rather than going for 3, 4s, 5s like they do, domestically. But I think it's all kind of looking as if it's going to be the makings of a very entertaining game again on Wednesday night. It's just got one of those sort of feels to it for me. But I'm feeling reasonably confident that Celtic will get a result from there. I mean, from your point of view, are you expecting a similar sort of setup to how he has played in Europe away from home from last season? Or do you think with what he has done in the transfer window might lend his hand to perhaps tweaking it slightly?
I think it'd be wise to maybe tweak it slightly. That's just my opinion, because I do think the group is very, very much alive for Celtic if they get a draw. I'm not saying we go out there with the intention of drawing. I just think there has to be a wee bit of consolidation sometimes. If we don't, and it works, and we get a huge win, then more fool me, and fair enough. And I think Celtic's capable of winning at this level, football matches, whether it be on the road or not. But the opposite side of it is the signing of Abildgaard intrigues me, because that has to be with a plan in mind, Jonathan. He doesn't fit, that midfield profile of player that we've got right now currently. He doesn't fit it, Jonathan. We've got guys that aren't of that sort of stature, that sort of height, and that sort of mind, Jonathan, with the willing to be holding midfielders. Cal McGregor's there, and I think he's an extremely forward-thinking player, Jonathan, playing in that sitting role. I've got a feeling that Abildgaard signing was, a wee peek behind the curtain as to what Angie's next plans are for Celtic, and I think he signed him with a view to setting up slightly differently for certain games. That would be wise. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Firstly, I always feel with tactics and formations, you can become predictable. We're going to 24 minutes in and sound that klaxon for a third time, Jonathan. Wow.
Wow, we are really going on the Martin O'Neill Express tonight. Why don't we get Martin O'Neill back in? He should be in the changing room or something on Wednesday night, helping Andrew with the team talk. Really,
I would love
banging
that.
on about him.
I would love that, mate. I would love that. We went to Ibrox and went 4-4-2. I don't know if you remember that. Jackie McNamara came back and the team was actually given the captain's armband. And that led to him sort of becoming a regular in the team again. And that 4-4-2, Martin O'Neill, I don't remember him playing often, if ever, before that. And I think at that point, Livingston was having his sort of purple patch against us. And that was Martin O'Neill's way of combating it, was two players on the right-hand side. You had Agat and McNamara. So before you know it, Celtic playing 4-4-2, caught opposition out. Now, if Andrew's only ever playing the same formation, the same setup, the same way every game, that becomes predictable, Jonathan, even though it's a unpredictable type of play. It becomes predictable. If you're anything that you're going up against, Jonathan, is the same as what it was the last time you went up against it, or the same as what all your video research has shown game by game. So you do need to mix it for certain games, and not just that. Different styles make fights, Jonathan. People forget that. And not always is going away in the Champions League going to be cause for rock and roll football, Jonathan. It could be a hostile environment. We don't know. I mean, I'll be honest about the game, right? See if you want my takeaway from how do I see the game going. How do I see Celtic lining up, firstly? I hope there's some sort of pragmatism involved. I don't see it. I think it'll go the same. And I think that could be to our downfall, if I'm completely honest. But we'll try and stay positive because we can get something from this game.
We definitely can. I'm a wee bit there. I was getting a wee bit of chat back on that, but only for a moment. But whilst you're sorting that out, I think he will approach it the same way. I think he is very keen on trying to imprint his style of play, and he wants Celtic to try and do that at the top level. And he's been saying that in various podcasts over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you've seen his latest open goal or his one with Mr. Sutton for BT as well. He's done one with, and in both of those, he's pretty adamant that he wants to test Celtic in terms of seeing how well he can get his team playing the way he wants them set up, and if he can actually get them to the level where they're able to compete in the Champions League. Postecoglou is never going to be one of those managers for me that's going to set his team up like super defensively. He's not going to do like what Neil Lennon sometimes did, and just accept that they're playing a better opponent and just try and make it difficult for them to break us down. I don't think that's in Andrew's philosophy at all. The way he summed it up in his presser last week was that there's lots of different ways to play a game of football. All of them come with risk. There's no risk-averse strategy you can come. You could play a defensive strategy and maybe that minimises the risk, but there's still risk there. And, you might end up only losing maybe 1-0 in some of these games, but nobody wants to see that if it just means Celtic are parking the bus and not really trying to win the match and trying to hold out for a 0-0, even though a 0-0 would actually be a good result for us on Wednesday night. So I fully expect that Postecoglou will set them up to have a go. I think what he might do is he might switch a couple of the personnel around to try and offer a little bit more off the ball. And I think Maeda, for me, is one of the ones that's almost a certainty, I think, to come back in because he'll offer you a little bit more defensively rather than what Abada offers when he's playing out there. And I think that's something Andrew will look at and want to try and make sure that the players he has playing are going to be as good off the ball as they can be, because they are going to be challenged and they are going to have to do a lot of running with the way he wants to set his team up. You've got to also remember they'll still have the 5 sub rule. Celtic have a lot of strength and depth. I think that Haksabanovic looked very good again in his brief cameo against Real Madrid. I think he is primed to be getting more minutes. He looks another pacey one. By all accounts, would I consider starting him? I mean, he'd be pushing. He'd be pushing. I'm not sure I'd quite start him yet, but I think he'd certainly be giving you that question. He's certainly posing the question with what he's shown so far in the brief appearances he's made. And, I think Haksabanovic certainly draws intrigue amongst the supporters, and we're certainly looking forward to seeing a lot more of him in a Celtic shirt from the brief glimpses we've got so far. And I think, again, he looks like he could be somebody that comes into effect a lot off the ball as well as on it, whereas, I think, Jota and Abada are more going to be more used to when they're actually just allowed to go and attack, whereas I think, the likes of obviously Maeda, and from what I've seen of Haksabanovic, he may well be onto a similar mould that will do a little bit more defensive work for the team. So there is that to consider. Other than that, I'm not sure there'll be too many other changes. I think it'll be Maeda in for Abada. I can't see too many other changes from the team. I guess the other option you'll have to consider, Russell, is whether he goes with Kyogo or Giakoumakis up top. And I guess a lot of that will depend on how fit Kyogo has now got after having a bit more of an extended break again, which might have played into our hands, not playing at the weekend. It's giving Kyogo a little bit more time to get himself up to full fitness. I would suspect if he's near enough there, then that's who Postecoglou would go with. Although I think Chaos might be quite a good option in a game like this, just for his hold-up play. I thought he would look like a very good Champions League option for us. But if you were looking at the team, Russell, would you expect there to be too many changes from the team that started against Real Madrid? Is there many you would be looking at taking out and putting in?
I think it's very interesting because the one benefit we get, obviously, with the no fixture, the fixture's been sort of postponed, whatever, at the weekend. Load of shite, but it's done now. But the good thing about that is, Jonathan, that Ange's got his full array of choices to make, bar Starfelt. Anyone else missing? Am I being daft?
I believe it's just Starfelt. I've not heard anything else to suggest anyone else is out. So, yeah, he's pretty much got his full squad to choose from.
So he's got a situation now, Jonathan, but he's got his straight shootouts for the positions. He's got his competition that he wanted for each position. Now it's about who he likes the most, who's training hardest, who's in the best form. Ange can sort of, collate all those sort of reasons and go with his preferred options. If there was positions up for debate, I definitely think Abada's going to be in a precarious position to get another Champions League start on the back of his last one. I think he was nervous. I know I described him as shit in the bed last week, but that was maybe a wee bit harsh. But all I meant was I thought he was a bit of a rabbit in headlights. I think it was epitomised by that attempted finish at one point where he doesn't know what he's doing. Then 2 minutes later, he doesn't know if he's crossing or shooting. It's just straight in at the goalkeeper at a snail's pace. And I don't know. Even when he was getting the ball at other times, he looked nervous. And I just think away from home, with the game now having a wee bit more meaning to it. I mean, it's funny because all we kept saying before the Real Madrid game, Jonathan, was all you kept hearing was that won't define the group stage. That won't define the group stage. Yet losing to them 3-0 now has us going into round 2. And Phil McGinley, for example, in the comments is saying we have to get something from this game now. So the Real Madrid games, there's never any fixture that isn't important in the group, right? And the 3-0 win for Real Madrid, combined with the fact Shakhtar, of course, won, is obviously increased levels of panic too. We could be out. Jonathan, if we lose tomorrow. Don't want to go that far because we still have 4 games, 12 points to play for. Could be Real Madrid already through. When you go to the Bernabeu, could be their kids that they play. And 2 out the other 3 games sandwiched before that would be at home against the 2 sides we thought we could take something off in the first place. So nothing's going to be completely over no matter what happens tomorrow. But I think the team I would go for wouldn't include Abada. It would be a case right now. I think it'll be Maeda that he'll play. But I think Hacksaw has a lot more quality on the ball. And hard work gets you so far. Of course it does. But quality is also very important at this level. We've seen that with Maeda's finish. That's not a slagging of Maeda. It is not a slagging of him. It's just a reality that those moments require that extra level of quality. Now, we could be judging Hacksaw a wee bit early, Jonathan, but your first impressions normally go a long way with a player. The way they take the ball, whether they can play with their head up, whether they've got confidence on the ball, whether they're brave on the ball. And that's what you're looking for in a winger. And I do believe that Hacksaw has that wee X factor about him. I think we can see signs of it. And of course, one of the other things about Hacksaw is if you've got that bravery, then I don't think he would give one toss about playing in this from the start. I don't think he'd be nervy about it. I think he feels he belongs in the team. I think he's got that sort of swagger, Jonathan, which I don't mind. I'll be honest with you, I don't mind that in a player. I really don't. There's too many lacks of characters actually out there in football. They're all fucking just doing like big posts on Instagram about politics and that. Do you know what I mean? They don't know anything about and sending big farewell messages after they go get another bag of money from their next club. Hacksaw's came in with a wee bit of bravado, a bit of swagger, a bit of chaos about him, you could say. I think he could be your joker card for Wednesday night, Jonathan. I think he could be the joker card. Any other position? I'm glad that we've not got to have the Jens and Starfelt debate. Starfish, I should say, if Terry Rob's watching.
Starfish, yep.
That's a classic. Because I do think for me, Jens is ahead of him in the pecking order, and I don't like to be singling out Starfish for over criticism either, though, on it, which it can often lead to coming over as when you've got to pick one or the other. So Jens, that one takes care of itself. And then, we're going to have the debate about Kyogo and Giakoumakis. And one of the best debates about this Celtic team, and one hopefully we'll continue to have for the rest of this campaign, is every big game going into it. Is it Kyogo? Is it chaos? I mean, Kyogo must be sitting there looking at his numbers and going, fucking planet are you guys on? Of course I'm playing. But again, such is the impact that Giakoumakis has on this for this Celtic team. He ran through brick walls against Real Madrid. He ran out of steam against Real Madrid. No two ways about that. But he caused them an array of problems. He did very, very well in the Glasgow derby, Jonathan. And again, coming on after 5 minutes, out for the cold, into the heat of the derby, you've got to get going. And he did very well in that. His hold-up play is excellent. That can be handy getting the team up the park, Jonathan, in the Champions League, where, you don't have the same possession. You're not able to just, ping beautiful balls up to a Kyogo, making brilliant runs, like it is domestically. There's different challenges here. And sometimes you need to look at a lineup, Jonathan, and that lineup is based on playing the fixture, a term that we used often last season. Playing the fixture. What that also means is that the player you're necessarily picking isn't because you think they're better than the other one, or isn't because they're now the number one in that position. I think it's because it's playing the fixture. It might just be their strengths or their weaknesses might either be more suited to this type of game or be not. On that, I do think Ange is a bias slightly towards Kyogo. I think he is slightly biased towards him, and I think whenever it's a 50-50, I think Kyogo gets the nod. If it were me, the honest truth, I would pick Giakoumakis for tomorrow. And that's not because I'm slightly biased towards him. Maybe it is. But I would lean slightly towards chaos, I think, for the fixture on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense in some ways to have Giakoumakis in, because you aren't going to see as much of the ball, and he is the kind of guy who can hold it up and bring in whoever is playing out wide into the game, which is what you do need on these sort of nights, is you need an outlet. And it does give Celtic another option as well, in the sense that they can actually, rather than having to play through the midfield to get Kyogo involved, is you can actually then occasionally just play the long ball if you have to. And Giakoumakis will cause them a handful, whereas if you're trying that with Kyogo, you're really needing that ball to go in behind for him to try and run onto, and it's not as easy for that to work out. So you're almost having to play more through your midfield if it is indeed Kyogo that does start in a game like that. But
you were tempted to do the accent there, weren't you?
I was thinking about it, but I decided
you were kind
better.
Of half and half. I could hear a wee bit of it coming out.
Half went in, didn't I? Kind of was like,
I could hear it coming
out. The boot kind of went out, and then he's kind of pulled it back at the last minute when the tackle was coming. He's not better of it. We can't be having any of that on Wednesday night, that's for sure. We need some full-blooded tackles. None of that. Putting the boot out and then bringing it back in. But when it comes to both of them, I think we're in a very lucky position in the sense that we've at least got two strikers that we're more than confident can do a job at this level, and whichever one it is that actually ends up getting the nod, we'll have full confidence in being able to put in a strong performance against Shakhtar. And I think that's probably the one that will give Ange a wee bit of a headache. I'm inclined to go similar to yourself in the sense that I think Postecoglou, probably Kyogo is his man in some ways, that managers have some players. Yeah, I think some managers always have one or two players that just will not get dropped when they're fit, and I think Kyogo probably fits into that frame with Ange Postecoglou, is that if Kyogo's fit, Kyogo starts is pretty much the rule with Boyce'S. I mean, hell, he played him in the League Cup final, openly admitted played him in the League Cup final when he was nowhere near fit and that he was going to be injured, because when it comes to the big important games, Ange likes to go to the players he trusts the most. And that's not to say he doesn't trust chaos, but I think when it comes right down to it, if he's got to put all his money on one of the two of them, yeah. If he's the one who's going to, if he was at the casino and he has the choice between Kyogo or Giakoumakis, he's putting all his chips, I would say, on Kyogo for a game like this if they're both fit. So I think that is something that he will probably pick. I think, unless there's been some big changes in training over the last week, the rest of the team will probably pick itself outside of Abada and Aida, which we've already discussed there. I think Hacksaw will probably be pushing for a start. I wouldn't be overly surprised if he comes off the bench. However, he may well be in line for a start. I wouldn't be overly shocked at the weekend against St Mirren if indeed those games end up going ahead this weekend, which it looks like they are going to be from what the SFA are putting out today. So fingers crossed we do have the
Yes.
domestic games back at the weekend, so that we're not having to try and cram more games into the schedule further down the line. So I'm not entirely sure where they're going to fit these matches in if they keep postponing them, because there's a very limited window, I think, now between this part of the season and the World Cup beginning at the end of November. So it's one of those ones where I think Ange will be feeling fairly confident and fairly relaxed with the team. And I think the fact he's had those extra days training, I don't know why, but that makes me feel like that's actually given us more of an advantage for a game like this, because Ange Postecoglou was a training ground manager. He says it himself, that he feels most comfortable when he's on the training pitch. And in some ways, perhaps not having that distraction of having a league game against Livingston on Saturday has meant he's had more time now to prepare for Shakhtar Donetsk and get across the message and convey his plans to the players with those extra, training sessions that he's been able to have. And the fact he's also now known that he's not going to be picking up any injuries, because they're not going to be getting the roughhouse treatment that undoubtedly Livingston would have dished out, at Celtic Park under Martindale. So I think from that point of view, Russell, and I know obviously none of us were really happy about the game being postponed at the weekend. Do you think, though, with that game being postponed, that has given us a bit more of an advantage for Wednesday, or do you think, it would have been better just to have played that game and kept the players ticking over?
I think if we forget the bullshit that of the benefits, that Rangers have got from not playing, and I think that's really where our focus has been.
I think that's where the frustration came from our camp, and a lot of it.
If you asked 100 Celtic fans to think Rangers are dropping points at Pittodrie, I think around 80, 90 of them say, yeah, I do. That's I think if you asked 100 Rangers fans if they thought they were dropping points at Pittodrie, I would say 50-50 split, mate. Do you know what I mean? So that tells you something, that made up survey that I've just quoted you. That tells you something, yeah. But what I would say is, if we just focus solely on us and forget all that shit, yeah, I think it's a benefit. Of course I do. Yes, we're in full swing. Sometimes you just want the games to keep coming thick and fast, but realistically, we've only played one midweek game this season, Jonathan. All the other games have been with the benefit of that 7-day break. And this is where I'm getting the Hacksaw vibes. And I'll just say, by the way, on the Kyogo Giacomakis, amazing in the comments, the split. I mean, it's so divided. Loads of good reasons for both players to start. Of course, Brown Warrior has the most simplified option. He just wants us to start them both. We'll get that petition back as well, Jonathan. But I definitely think, with the benefit of these 7 days, to go back to your point, that strengthens the argument for Hacksaw to perhaps get his start. I think that I think had we played at the weekend, I think he may have started against Livingston and been sub tonight, and he may well be sub on Wednesday. But I think not playing at the weekend and another 7 days of getting up to scratch, and sometimes you need to have a wee joker card. And Ange isn't immune to doing that himself. He's played, the odd. He's sprung the odd surprise plenty of times with his Celtic lineup. I don't know. One thing we all seem to be agreed on is the midfield three. I think they did more than enough to convince us all they're Champions League competitive as a midfield trio. I think so. And the only way I think they'll be disrupted in the rest of the group is if Abildgaard was to come in, because we're doing a change of shape and we're playing this double pivot system, because we're trying to protect something more, i.e. at the Bernabeu. It might be goal difference, Jonathan. It comes down to if all these other three teams, ourselves included, or start taking points off each other. Do you know what I mean? But interestingly, with missing the game, I just think that Celtic, sometimes 7 days, Jonathan, is too long for teams when they're on a winning streak and the momentum's with them, and boy, oh boy, ours is. But I also think there's a couple of wins to lick from last week, and we've seen the frustration on Ange's reaction, Jonathan, when, at full time. I think he'll be quite glad of not having another game. I think he'll be fucking sitting there analysing. He's had more time now to reflect on what went wrong with that performance, more video analysis of it than he normally would be afforded, because obviously the Livingston game not there. He's not had to switch to focusing on that as much. He's had more time also remember to prepare for Shakhtar, which is very important. And obviously, they can catch you cold on an off night. 8 days, says Matthew Duff. Of course it is, mate. Of course it's 8 days. Absolutely.
We're just determined to play this game on Tuesday. We're going to be sitting, we're looking on BT Sport, being like, where's the Celtic game? Why is it not on the telly?
Because we're going to Kevin Bridges on the Wednesday. Some Celtic fans we are. But I think the extra time will do us the world of good going into the game. Extra time on the training ground always suits Angie's players, no matter who they are, it would seem. It gives extra time for the new recruits to get bedded in. It gives them more of a chance to get a start. And also, it gives us more time, as I say, to prepare for Shakhtar. I don't see any negatives to us not playing this weekend, Jonathan, to be honest, from a Celtic point of view. I think our only negatives are from the competitive nature that we've all got towards our rivals.
Yeah, I would agree that I think the main source of frustration from our point of view with the games being off at the weekend was absolutely the amount of damage that it could have done to Rangers' domestic campaign, because I would have fancied Aberdeen to have taken points as well, possibly even winning up at Pittodrie with the way things were going for our rivals across the city and the way they've been playing. But if we're looking at it from our point of view, I would agree that I think the extra time training would have done us a world of good. I think Angela enjoyed having those extra hours to spend on the training ground, trying to correct what went wrong against Real Madrid, and also being able to look forward to Shakhtar Donetsk. What I would say, I guess, is from the players that haven't featured as much, they may well have wanted that game on in some ways, because I'm going to throw an example in there. I don't think Abada, for example, would have started against Real Madrid if it hadn't been for the fact he put on some absolutely fantastic performances in the lead up to that match. I think he pretty much made it impossible for Ange not to pick him.
That's a great point.
And I think when you're looking at it now, and I know you're talking obviously banging the drum for Hacksaw to possibly be included from the start, I think Hacksaw would have probably benefited more from an individual point of view if that game on Saturday had went ahead, because I'm with you. I think he would have started in that game, and if he puts in a very strong performance against Livingston, similar to what Abada was doing earlier in the season, then it would have made it very difficult for Ange to then go and take him back out the team for Wednesday. And I think that's maybe where the frustration perhaps lies with some of the players that are, on the periphery of the starting 11 and that didn't quite make it into the starting 11 against Real Madrid, is then the fact they've not had an opportunity to go out, and impress Ange in a competitive game and show the fans that they are ready to start on Wednesday night. And I think that might well be the only downside in not playing for me on Saturday, is the fact that it probably means the team won't change too much, as I think Angela have already had an idea as to what he would have wanted to play, even a day or so after the Real Madrid game. I think he would have been able to make, sort of snap judgments as to what he thought went wrong, and if he felt he needed to make a change in personnel, which, could have flipped again if the game on Saturday had went ahead and somebody had really stood out. And I think the main sort of positions that are up for grabs do seem to be the wingers and the striker. I think they're the main ones. I would agree with you. The centre midfield trio, for me, don't get budged at all, unless he wants to change the shape of the team, or unless one of them picks up an injury or has a suspension. There's just no way he's changing them at the moment, because I thought the three of them were absolutely outstanding for the first 45 minutes against Real Madrid last week, and more than proved, each of them more than proved that they were capable of performing at this level. So it's one of those ones where I think the ones that have missed out, Russell, and not had the opportunity to play there. Do you think if you were in that sort of position, would that be a frustration for you, do you think, with the fact that the game was off against Livingston and you've not had that opportunity, if you were like a Hacksaw, to go in and make a real claim for a certain place? Do you think that might cause a bit more frustration in the players that missed out and they've had to even buckle down even harder at training to try and prove their worth?
I think there's maybe an element of a selfish frustration on that part, because they've all got their own egos, etc., and they've all got their own ambitions for what they think their right is to be in the starting lineup, etc. But Jonathan, what you would also have to combine that with is Celtic are very much a team, a unit, as a team. I think they're all playing for each other right now, so I don't think there'd be so much frustration at it. I think one of the other benefits, I'm just having a wee think there as you were talking, is we need to remember how draining that fixture was against Real Madrid as well. This wasn't just another 90 minutes, Jonathan. We've seen it with our own two eyes. The players were on their feet, they're dead on their feet, mate, by 60 minutes. You could see them. They couldn't run the line for themselves. And that showed you that the first half, whilst we need a lot of credit for our efforts, those efforts that were being put in were at a far higher intensity, a far higher work rate sort of required than what normally would be. That was apparent, Jonathan, that to actually keep up that press and keep the ball as often as you possibly could in the Real Madrid half and create the opportunities we did and nick possession back like we did against the champions of Europe actually takes a lot more out of you than what it does in other games. And that's maybe another benefit of having this 7-day break. How does Ange look at it, though, retrospectively? Does he go, okay, what happened on Tuesday I've learned from. I'm willing to give Ollie a chance to go, go do the same again against Shakhtar. Abad, I'm not going to hold it against you, mate. You were on fire before then. He could do that, realistically, because there were so many good things from the first half. And all those guys, as I say, with a 7-8 day break, I'll keep that 8 days, Matthew. With an 8-day break, I mean, yeah, that's the team he fancied last week to play against European champions. If we're going to go down the road of they won't be judged on that result, they won't be judged against European champions, then I'm guessing that they did start in that game, though, because it was Ange's what he felt was his strongest 11. I think if Ange feels like that again, then it will be Bar Kyogo coming in for chaos, probably. I think it might be the exact same team now I think about it. If it were me, I would be bringing Haxo into the starting lineup as a joker card. But my preference, and I think everyone's point about counter attacks and on the break with Kyogo, I get that. I also think he's capable of stretching, tiring defenses for the last 30 minutes. I would maybe start with chaos. Whilst the game's in full of life in that first half, I think it can be quite handy to have a player who's got such strength, such really good awareness as well of where defenders are around him. And his hold-up play is just excellent. I think that ticks the boxes for me. I get the arguments for Kyogo. I'll not be disappointed which one starts. But the Abada one is the other one that would be up for grabs, I think, Jonathan. I think Juranovic is a guarantee. Taylor's a guarantee. Hart's a guarantee. The midfield three are guarantees. Centre-backs we've discussed. They're guaranteed. So it's Jota's not going to get dropped. It's Chaos Kyogo and Abada stroke Hacksaw stroke Maida as well. It'll be interesting. But I would like to see us just mix it a wee bit and see what the Hacksaw could do from the start.
It would be interesting if he did do something like that because he's not really thrown a curveball our way in a while with his starting 11. I wouldn't say, Ange, in terms of really going, I think if he was to start something like Hacksaw, that would be a very left field sort of player to shove in from the start. I think that would raise a few eyebrows if they were to see him coming in. And, in a good way, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, fucking hell, that was not what we expected to see starting in the original lineup. Whereas, he's kind of, he always kind of reverted to type. You've always had a reasonably good idea of what Ange's teams are going to be. I think me and Terry have pretty much got them right most weeks so far this season as to who he'd actually have in the team. And, in some ways, to be fair, the team's been playing that well. It makes it very difficult to make a lot of changes, to it in any event. Because when the team is playing as well as that, you don't want to be disrupting it too much by making too many wholesale changes.
Well, that's what Monty's saying. Monty's saying it's not a game for gambling, and I get that. I do take that on board.
Yeah, no, and I think that is something that Ange might well look at that and just think Hacksaw's too big a risk for a game like this. We don't know how fit he is yet either, though of course he might well have benefited from having another week worth of training. It'll be interesting whether he decides that's going to be enough to make him think he's ready to start, because he's yet to start the game for Celtic yet. I think if he's looking at his wingers, I think my gut tells me it'll be Maida he's going to go with, because I think Maida offers you a lot off the ball and he'll be very good on counter-attacks because he is so fast, supersonic, can barely keep up with them. So, it's it's one of those ones with Maeda. I think he will be pivotal, I think, for Ange in a lot of these European games. I'm convinced the original plan was that he would start against Real Madrid, and Abada pretty much forced Postecoglou's hand with his performances and made it pretty much impossible for him not to play Abada in that first game against Real Madrid. I think away from home he might choose to be a little bit more conservative by bringing in Maeda just so he's got that little bit extra cover defensively, but also because it does offer a lot more pace on the counter-attack when you've got a Dyson Maeda in there. Although, granted, I would say out of the wingers we have, Maeda's probably the poorest on the ball out of all of them. Nobody's going to beat him for a work rate, I don't think, either. And I think that might just be the telling difference that Ange might look for when he's actually selecting his team for this game. But other than that, I think the rest of the team is going to be pretty much as it was. I think Kyogo will most likely start for Giakoumakis, although I think I would probably be in the Giakoumakis camp as well. I just think starting him, allowing him to kind of ruffle up the defenders when those defenders' legs start to get a bit tired, when they're getting fed up of the wingers' press and they're getting fed up of chaos, throwing them about like rag dolls, then you go for the kill and you bring Kyogo on maybe about an hour in, give him the last half an hour and he will run the living daylights off of them and probably get a lot of joy there. So I think that would be the best strategy and would probably the one, if it was me, that I would look to deploy if I was looking at the striker position. But I think from Ange's point of view, I'm fairly confident that'll be Kyogo that'll start in there, because I would imagine after having a week off as well, it's probably helped Kyogo recover from that shoulder bump he took in the Glasgow derby, and he's probably now feeling fully fit and raring to go. But there's certainly, Russell, going to be a lot of selection choices for Ange Postecoglou to make in this game, and I think, whatever he ends up going with, I think one thing we can say now is the strength and depth he has. I don't think anyone can really complain with any of the options he has, can they?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, James Young keeps going on about bring in the chat, bros. I see you, James, mate. Look, I don't know if you were here on Saturday night. I did a show talking myself, just simply going through comments. Thursday Night Forum is all about bringing the comments on. And we've still been bringing up comments consistently through tonight as well, mate. So don't worry about that. We've even referred to quite a few of them as well. So I don't really know what you're talking about, mate. But it's good to have you on the bus anyway, pal. Jonathan, I do think it will be interesting. I agree with you. He's got plenty of options to go for. We can't grumble at that aspect. Ange has got the tools he's been looking for. He's got the competition for places that he wanted. He's got a settled core of a first team with very exciting attacking options that we can go for. And I think it was Shippy67 was coming in, and he was saying, we have been recently, when you look at last season, starting away from home in Europe, AZ, Ferencváros, Betis, of course, who can forget that? Starting with a bang, and actually that being like the unknown, because the home sides haven't expected us to go like that. I suppose with that in mind, we would have to definitely need to consider that maybe my take earlier on in the show about a pragmatic approach could be misguided, because it's been a long time since we played away in Europe, and I don't count Bodo away because that's a fucking joke, whatever it was.
Well, we chucked that game. We chucked that game for the league. He pretty much admits it in one of his podcasts he just recently. He said the league was the priority and he chucked it. So, Bodo Glimt, whatever anyone's thoughts are on that, it was a bit, it's not really particularly relevant compared to the other away games for me, just purely because I don't think Celtic approached that. I don't think Celtic approached that the way they should have done, and they certainly didn't take it as seriously as the likes of going to Leverkusen. I think that's the one I look at last season, where I think Bayer Leverkusen, particularly after getting smashed at Celtic Park, we go over there and we give them a proper game. We give them a proper scare, and we probably should have got something out of that game. Although I'm hoping, Russell, that this isn't becoming a general theme with Ange Postecoglou's teams, where they end up becoming the sort of unlucky team, if you like, where they put in these great performances and get, no results at the end of it, and pretty much end up becoming the bridesmaid but never the bride sort of feel to it. So I think I think he will try and have a go. I think he's going to try and overpower Shakhtar Donetsk in that first half. I think it's going to be a similar sort of approach to what he tried against Real Madrid and indeed Rangers, because it has been working throughout most of the season. And I think Ange will probably say, even against Real Madrid, if Celtic take one of those chances in the first half, the game may well have been different, because that could have given the players an extra boost in terms of energy levels, because they had got themselves in front. The crowd would have been G'd up even more, and the game might have went a totally different route from where it ended up going. And I think Ange will be desperate to try and see his style work on the big stage. I think that's huge for him, is that he wants to be able to say, we've won, but we've also won playing the way that I want us to play football, and I haven't had to compromise on my beliefs in order for us to get a big win in Europe.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of examples from last season. It was the good, the bad, and the ugly in Europe, Jonathan. It was a mixed bag. I'd see the group going very similarly this year, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
Not because
so.
I want that to happen. I think it will be a mixed bag of results. I think we'll have an away display that hopefully the tangible progress will be based on the fact we get a victory as opposed to a hard luck story defeat. Although I could still see that being the case, just because we're going up, as I say, in levels of standard of opposition. Celtic have went up a gear. I think Celtic are a better team than they were last year. I think the teams we're playing are better than the teams we played last year. I think our style is very attacking, very attractive, good on the eye. A lot of you could call it the Celtic way. I get all that. And I think it will catch teams cold. It could catch Shakhtar cold. But then as games go on, keeping up that intensity will be very, very difficult. See Real Madrid last week. I know, despite obviously me saying the Champions League, quality is going up, Real Madrid are very much an exception to the rule as well, where they're actually in another fucking planet of football, compared with just a few rungs up the ladder, Jonathan, as it were. But that said, we go to Shakhtar, we go and take the game to them. If we do get a 2-goal lead early or something like that, it'd be very interesting to see how our game management has worked from last season to this. And if we have learned any of the mistakes, Jonathan, that we maybe haven't, that maybe that we did fall short in the Europa League campaign last year, will we see an improvement in situations like that? The 2 goals close to each other, considered consecutively near each other, Jonathan, is a point I'm seeing being spoke about in the comments. Obviously, the Leverkusen game comes to mind. Betis comes to mind. And you're thinking Real Madrid now last
Even
week.
Real Madrid, I was about to say 2 in a few minutes.
Now, that's got to stop. We cannot be just, if we concede, we need to, be able to take it a wee bit better than, just being able to, almost honestly like crumble us basically for the next 5 minutes, where we just, it's like getting a big punch in the chops. All your senses are a wee bit rattled. Celtic seem to just, they carry that sort of for 5 minutes. And if you're going to be, conceding buy one get one free on goals in the Champions League, you ain't going to get many points. So that needs tightened up. I do think we could spring a surprise on Wednesday. We will be doing a post-match push show. It will be hosted by Phil McGinley. Thank you to everyone in the comments. 145 watching. Hopefully you've all hit that like button, hit the share button for Boyce'S Boy. We do appreciate it. Audio downloads, if you want to catch up with any of our shows, they are all on Spotify, iTunes, and all that. We're having record numbers for our audio downloads, Jonathan. They've really, really spiked recently, so that's class. And
yeah,
we'll be getting the podcast up soon if you prefer to listen to it on whatever podcast streaming network that you do. What else was I going to say there? I remember at Hoofs
for some horseshoes.
Yes, Jonathan. You need a lucky horseshoe if you want to win one of the raffles. Hoops raffle.
Yeah, lucky horseshoe. I thought you were going to say if you want Celtic to win on Wednesday, everyone get out and buy your horseshoes.
Well, we need that too. But yeah, fingers crossed. One of the viewers of the Boyce'S is in with a chance of winning Hoops raffle. Remember, it is the Celtic away kit for this season, the black with the beautiful green pinstripes.
Maybe the best one yet. That one, to be fair.
Oh, it's a belter. It's Adidas' best kit, and it's signed by Kyogo. It's got his name and number on the back, Kyogo, and it's got the Champions League.
I bet Ange Postecoglou's in for this as well. If he sees this, I think he'd be in for this.
Kyogo. Anyway, I will leave it. Thanks again for watching. That's been brilliant fun. Back Wednesday, post-match push with Phil McGinley. Day off tomorrow. That's unusual for the boss.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.